tuning in. This is Optibotimus coming with another video review. And today we're going to be taking a look at the new Toyworld Grind Rod TW-T01. Now this figure has been out for a little while, but I initially passed on it. I really wasn't all that impressed, honestly. Mostly because the throttle bots were kind of a blah sort of subline for me. But after getting Aurora, I really decided that I love the way that the figures are. So I went back and picked up the TW-01 or TW-T01 Grind Rod figure, hoping that it's going to be just as good as that Aurora figure. As you can see, you got this nice open package showing the Jeep kind of motif here. Coming around here on the side, you got the back of him, you got the image of the robot mode, his Jeep, then just his Jeep. Now, a lot of people were asking me in my Aurora review if there's a kind of a tease as the third figure, and I didn't understand why they kept asking me that until I got this figure, and that's because on the bottom of Grind Rod here, they're showing Aurora. So a lot of people thought when we got Aurora, we would get a preview of the third figure, and unfortunately that wasn't the case. There's just nothing on that box at all, but there we have Grind Rod. Really very cool, very excited about finally having him. So let's get this guy open and see how cool he actually is. Alright guys, so here we have Grind Rod open up and out its packaging. And in case you guys didn't know, Grind Rod is meant to be an homage to the G1 throttle bot known as Roll Bar. Now much like his G1 counterpart, Grind Rod is in this nice kind of Jeep motif. Whatever specific Jeep it is, I do not know. I'm just gonna say it's a Jeep. I mean, obviously with the grill and everything, it does have a Jeep look, which is really nice. Because if you remember in my review of Aurora, there were some actual liberties kind of taken with the look of that vehicle. Aurora is meant to replicate Searchlight, who was kind of a rally car. So when Toyworld got a hold of him, they changed him from a rally car into an SUV, specifically a Range Rover Evoque. So it is nice that they stayed true to what Roll Bar was and kind of replicated that here in the Grind Rod figure. Really very nice though. I do love the way that this looks. I mean, these are absolute wonderful looking representations of real cars. I mean, they really do look like kind of like alternators or things of that nature. I mean, very, very cool looking. Now, they are fairly small, so for a size comparison, here he is. Much like I did with my review in Aurora, here's the Classics Bumblebee, just so you can kind of see what's going on. Basically, same size. Now, obviously, Bumblebee's going to be a little bit smaller, at least when you compare it to a Jeep. A Jeep should be a little bit bigger of a vehicle. So size-wise, again, very nice. And as much as I love Bumblebee, I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with Goldbug, who is basically the updated version of Bumblebee, and he was turned from a mini-bot to a throttle bot. And then for another comparison, here you have him next to Aurora, and again, basically the same size here. Now, I do think that this guy's a little bit smaller. I really do kind of think that the Evoque is a little bit bigger of a vehicle than what we're having here. This just looks too small if you ask me. But that still doesn't mean that I don't love this figure. This is a wonderful figure, and Grind Rod is absolutely on par with how cool this guy actually is. Now, in addition to his instructions, he does also come with the collector card, very hard plastic, very credit card thickness. You got this kind of protective wrap around it. You flip around here on the back, you got his tech specs, which is very cool. Now, again, the instructions do not indicate anything about a combiner. That was something that was actually confirmed by, I believe, TF Source. And they later went on to say that all the instructions and all the combiner parts will be included with the last figure release. So hopefully that's the case. But I mean, absolutely wonderful looking detail. You got nice headlights, you got the turn signal, you got the floodlights or fog lights down here, turn signals. You got the tail lights and everything here in the back. Absolutely wonderful looking vehicle mode. Now, his tire does remove, and you can see that there are connector ports right here. Well, pegs right here on the side, much like what we got with Aurora. You can see that there's a peg here and a peg here, and then you also got the peg here and you got the peg here. Then you got the whole section here, which if you remember on the back of Aurora, that comes off and you got another whole section there. So there are a lot of hints to possible connecting parts, and I'm really curious to see what it's going to do. Now, this is his tire. This can become his weapon. One thing that I find though with his weapon is he doesn't hold it very well at all. So you just fold this out and then you have his handgun. But the transformation for this guy is very, very similar to what we got with Aurora, which is also very cool. One thing that is I find a little bit difficult is the instructions tell you to, much like with Aurora, to pull this out, and it's very tough to actually kind of do. You can see it doesn't like pulling apart all that well. What I actually like doing is separating these, and then you can wiggle this out one at a time on both sides, because you can see they tab in here very securely at this top section, and it's a pain in the butt. There we go. But this just extends out just like so. Then you take this section here, you fold this, lift this up, and then you have a little tab bit right there that pegs into that whole section. Do that on the other side as well. Get that up. Very stiff joints on this one. I really do like that. Then fold these bits in, and here you have his legs. Just kind of straighten those out. Then everything else is, again, very similar to what we got with Aurora. Angling up so you can see that a little bit better. Just pull this out. It's a lot of kind of tabs in here, but one thing that I will say is that everything on here feels very secure. I mean, it really does feel like a solid plastic and action figure here that I'm not too worried about just in general. And then, I mean, you can see I'm kind of having some problems here with this. One thing I will say is that things seem a little bit tighter on this figure than with Aurora. So that's one thing that you might want to keep in mind. Just kind of wiggle that out. Why is this? This is supposed to come up. There we go. And some of the joints seem a little bit smaller to actually do things with, so there doesn't seem to be a lot of clearance. So rotate this out. And one of those clearance spots is right here on the side panel. Much like with Aurora, you take it and then you rotate it out. There's not a lot of leverage in there, so it's kind of hard to actually do. And then yeah, I should probably do this first. Rotate these around, just like so. And then you're gonna bring this whole section back. And this part actually sometimes pops off, and I don't particularly know why. I'm just struggling here with this for some reason. The transformation doesn't seem as fluid as it did with Aurora. I mean, the transformation seems very much more refined on the Aurora figure, and you can see that's one part that I've noticed that it doesn't stay in very well. This whole section here constantly pops out. When I rotate this around, it kind of, unless you really push it, it just pops out of the joint right there, which really kind of sucks. So getting this all the way back, just like so. Bring these around. There we go. There we go. We're getting things done. Bring these together. Those are going to tab together just like so. Then bring these arms out. Do that on this side as well. Everything seems, like I said, much tighter and compact in this one than with Aurora. So there doesn't seem to be a lot of wiggle room. And then again, you can see very subtle movement here. You're just pulling this up and angling it down just like so. Not a lot of movement, but just a subtle little bit. Take the head, fold that up like so, then bring this up and collapse that in. Straighten out these arms and get the legs kind of situated where they're looking pretty good. And here you have Grindrod in a very similar looking robot mode to what we got with Aurora. And to me that really does make sense because the transformation is very similar. They're basically using the same kind of design with newly molded pieces. And that makes for a terrific looking figure. Now for a comparison, let me straighten his legs up so he's standing straight for you guys. I mean, I really do like this guy. He fits so perfectly with the Throttlebot look. But for comparison, here he is, and here you have him next to Aurora. Now, basically, in terms of the height, they are exactly the same. So there really isn't all that much different. You do see the different design elements that are going on here in terms of the aesthetic and the actual molded parts. And obviously, there are some differences. I mean, like, Aurora had these side panels. He has his wheels that fold in, whereas Grindrod doesn't have that. But a lot of the other stuff is very similar, and that's so very cool that they're actually able to utilize that same kind of design to bring us two different characters. Now, whether or not that's going to continue with their other releases kind of remains to be seen because we don't even know what the third release is. And then for another size comparison, much like I did with Aurora, here's the Classics Bumblebee, and again, Bumblebee is a much smaller figure. He is, after all, a mini-bot, so when he changes to a Throttlebot, I guess that warrants a size increase. So the size really kind of puts this guy roughly a little bit taller than a deluxe size figure, but not as big as a Voyager. So that's what you're kind of looking at for the size relation, I suppose. But overall, terrific looking figure. I still love the way that the old Throttlebot kind of design is really prevalent here in the new design for these guys, where you have the back section, much like the Throttlebots had, the roof that just kind of folded back, and then the very big feet, much like the Throttlebots had. So all of those kind of design choices in the original figures are carried over in these new guys, and I think it's fantastic. One thing that does kind of suck, I wish there was some kind of like an ankle bend or something, because as you can see, you're constantly having to get him to stand where he's a little rockered. I mean, that kind of sucks. Aurora could do a little bit better job. And again, that's like what I was saying initially when I started reviewing this guy, that with Aurora, there just seems to be more refinements done. It's like they took that, they're like, hey, we can put a little swivel here in the foot and kind of make it look a little bit better. And that's what they did with Aurora, and it comes across very nicely. Now, Grindrod is still a terrific figure. I have heard some people had some problems with the shoulders, I think it was. As far as I know, I haven't had any of those problems, but for his articulation, the head will rotate left and right. Really nice light piping, which is really kind of unfortunately blocked by the back section here, but you can really see the amount of light piping kind of coming through there. When you get it straight on, you don't get that much. Turn it on the side and boom, I mean, you can really see that coming across very nicely. His shoulders here are on ball joints, so you get a nice range of motion. They also have the swivel here as part of the transformation, so you get a little bit of extra movement. The bicep has a rotation joint, elbow bends, wrists also rotate, and as you can see, much like Aurora, you got two different hands here. You got one that's more open, kind of like this, and then one that's in a fist, but both of them have the exact same amount of articulation. Rotates here at the waist. The hips here are, I honestly thought that they were ball joints at first, because they are very, not pulsable themselves, but they are just on little swivel joints. You got a swivel forward and back, in and out, and then you also got a cut here at the upper part of the thigh, bend at the knee, and that's it. Like I said, unfortunately this guy doesn't have really anything in his feet, but you can still get some really good poses with him, so very articulated figure. Not as much as Aurora, as I said, there's more refinement in that figure, but this is still a wonderful piece. And actually, technically he's got two kind of, I guess, knee joints. You got one here at the bottom section, and then you got one here at the top. So that's similar to Aurora. They both have that same kind of transformation element. Now, one thing that does kind of suck is his weapon. You can see how you open it like this. It actually can fit over here, which is really nice, but I can't get it for the life of me to peg into his fist. It's like the fists are way too tight for the hole here, so I can't actually get that in there, and it's really kind of frustrating. Let me see if I actually angle this back, if that makes some clearance for it. Yeah, see, I can't. The hole here, it just doesn't seem like it's wide enough for the actual peg, so I cannot get that in there, and I'm not going to keep forcing it. So unfortunately, that doesn't work very well. Now, this hand, does it fit in this hand? Yeah, but it doesn't. It doesn't really sit there very well. I guess you could put it here on these posts, or I'm sorry, these holes here on the side, and you can see that fits on there. So you can have them have a shoulder, or I'm sorry, a forearm cannon. I suppose you can't really keep it here in the back because the hole is covered here. I guess you could leave that a little bit more spread if you wanted to do that, and you could put the wheel there maybe. Let me see if I can. You'd have to really kind of angle these to get that in there. I mean, you can do it. I guess that kind of looks a little goofy, but if you wanted to, you could store it there. And that's probably what I'll end up doing, since I can't actually hold them, which is kind of unfortunate. I would like to have him actually hold his gun. I mean, that'd be the purpose of a gun. But terrific figure, very nicely done. The quality on here in terms of the plastic feels absolutely top-notch and very official, I suppose. This definitely feels like it could be a legitimate figure from Takara or Hasbro or something of that nature. The quality is just that good. Now, to transform him back, I'm gonna go ahead and take this off just to make some room here. Like I said, it is a little bit more of a tight fit for some reason. Fold the head in just like so, and then you're going to bring these arms down, and you're going to rotate them here, angle this back. Everything, like I said, is just extra tight on this, and it really kind of throws things off a little bit. Get that bent, bring that in like so. Do that on this side as well. Rotate it around, bring that in. Then you have to get this over the fists like that. And then you can squeeze all this together and just kind of set it there for right now. Just getting everything out of the way, I suppose. Then bring this section up, fold this out, bring this up and around. This, like I said, this is a very cumbersome kind of area here. I don't really like the way that this pops out as easily as it does. Bring this all up. You're just gonna squeeze everything together like so. Rotate these around. Bring this section up. Do that on this side as well. Peg that in just like so. Take these feet, fold these down, pop those in place, pop those into place like that. Then bend this, and usually I'll do one side at a time. Oh, I'm sorry. Fold these out. Do it one side at a time just because it is really a tight fit here. There we go. Get it in. Fold that out. Fold this down and in. Bring that in like so on the side. Tab that together. Bring these together. Lock everything in place. And here you have Grind Rod back in his Jeep mode. The one thing that I didn't show is his supposed leg mode, and all you do with that is just lift this up, keep these together like so, and this is in theory his leg. Again, we don't have any instructions on that to know if that's the case, but when you actually separate this, like I said, you do have the hole here, you got a hole here, you got a hole here. All of that is very similar to Aurora's, so I totally could see where those would become legs. I mean, if you leave that on there, it's not going to really do that much. But you could add some connector bits here to definitely give him a leg, or at least the lower part of the leg. Like this would be his shin and his foot, obviously. Then the thigh would be an extra piece up here. So if that's the case, that'll be cool. I really wish that we got more of a confirmation on that, because I really think that would make a lot of people really consider these a whole lot more if they just had that extra play feature. Now, the throttlebots didn't combine in G1, and I don't think they did in the subsequent Headmaster series or anything, and then just plug that right back in there. So I don't think that it's something that a lot of people are going to be a big fan of. I just think it'll be an extra play feature that a lot of people will like. As I mentioned initially, I was really not all that impressed with these figures, mostly because I didn't have a big connection to the throttlebots. But once I got my hands on Aurora, I was really very impressed with the quality and sheer cool factor of the way that he looked, enough that I went back and wanted to get Grind Rod. Now, if you are interested in picking this guy up, go ahead and click on the link down in the video description. You'll go to Big Bad Toy Store, where you can buy this guy for $70. Now, I do believe the initial cost was about $65. That's how much Aurora's going for. This, because I missed out the first time, I had to wait for the reissue, which is what this one is. And that reissue price is a little bit higher. So instead of $65, it's $70. But still, at $70, I think that this is well worth the price. The quality on here is fantastic. The plastic feels, like I said, very authentic. Transformation is very fun, it's very similar, but going to robot and going from robot to the Jeep, despite having the same transformation as Aurora, has a completely different end result, which really makes it fun to actually do. Both the vehicle mode and the robot mode look phenomenal and easily fit in a nice classics display, and I highly recommend picking up this guy, and if you haven't picked up Aurora, I would do so as soon as possible. But that's about it, guys. So once again, I want to thank you for tuning in. This has been Optibotimus. Keep in touch with me. Find out recent purchases as well as all upcoming video reviews all at facebook.com/teambotimus, and follow me over on Twitter at twitter.com/Optibotimus. And until next time, I'll talk to you later.